as delivery services are skyrocketing and revenues are plummeting. There's some budget issues in this city. There's budget issues throughout the country, throughout the world, but certainly they're happening here. And look, people want to know, when is the Strip going to reopen? Thoughts on that? What better person to have on the line than the Clark County Commissioner herself? That would be Marilyn Kirkpatrick joining us on the line. Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Great, thank you. How are you?
Doing good.
Doing
good.
Great.
Thanks for joining us. We really do appreciate your time. I know you've been very busy. I want to talk about some of the budget issues that you're facing, but before we actually get to that, let's start by talking about the Las Vegas Strip. Your thoughts on, Mayor Carolyn Goodman. She goes on CNN, Anderson Cooper. My opinion is I don't think she did herself any favors sharing her opinions on the Strip should reopen tomorrow. I want to get your thoughts on that, Marilyn Goodman's take on the Strip, and then your overall take of the Strip, if you can share that with us.
So what I'll tell you is, quite frankly, I'm working tirelessly to get us reopened in a safe manner, and that's really what's important today. So I'm focused on that. I sit on the Southern Nevada Health District. I understand the public health risks that are there, and I just don't think that we're ready to turn the key and have everything open at once. The last thing that I want to do is, sorry?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Commissioner. Go ahead.
And I just think that that's our focus today, is to move us forward in a safe manner, and not in a rush to just start turning things over, because that's not beneficial for the long term for the employees that need to feel safe about going back to work, as well as the tourists that we're supposed to, invite back. So.
And by the way, for the record, I could not agree with you more, and I appreciate what you just said. But I have to ask, do you think it hurts the city, and do you think it hurts what you're trying to do and what your people are trying to do when the mayor does all these national interviews and is, saying that she thinks everything should reopen tomorrow with no plan in place? I'm not trying to put you in a difficult spot, because I know you have to work with the mayor, and like I said, I'm on your side here. But do you think it's a little bit, because a lot of people feel it's detrimental what she did by making these claims that she wants everything to reopen tomorrow? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll just tell you, and I go back to the public health component of this. I think that I've been very clear. I too sit on a lot of national boards, and the goal is to, tell the world that we will come back when we're ready. And I think that's been very apparent with all of the hotels that are working to get testing in place so that our employees feel comfortable. So I work with everybody across the aisles, but nationally, I think people understand frustration on all sides, right? Some folks want to go back right away. Some folks aren't ready to go back. And I think that across the country, we've gotten several emails that folks saying, thank you for taking your time. We look forward to when you can invite us back. And I think that's the important part, right? We're resilient. We'll get there. They know that about us. And we'll invite them back when we're ready.
And I think one thing that's working in Las Vegas' favor is that this isn't just a significant or just isolated in Las Vegas. This is a national and international issue. It's not just happening where Las Vegas is shut down. Everything is shut down at this point.
Yeah. There's no question about that. So I want to, if you're just joining us again, we're speaking to Marilyn Kirkpatrick, the Clark County Commissioner. Before we get to some of the budget issues that you are facing, let me get your take on this. It's my personal opinion that the Strip is probably, and the casinos are probably the last thing that should open up, right? Because of all the people that would be coming to town and the amount of people that are in a casino, social distancing. So I just want to get your thoughts on that. When some people, and I'm not talking about the mayor anymore, but just people in general, they want the Strip to open up. My thought is that's probably the last thing that should open up. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, quite frankly, I've been following the CDC guidelines from day one on this, and the CDC guidelines say that there should be groups of less than 10 in clusters, and that is to help with the contact tracing should somebody be positive. And so it's well into phase 3 before they start talking about groups over 250. But also recognize that international travel is not happening right now. That is a big portion of what we rely on. So
That's a good point.
I don't see how we wouldn't even be be working in the best interest of anybody by not following the CDC guidelines.
I could not agree with you more, for the record again. But I have to ask you this question, and I know this is probably going to be a very difficult question for you to answer. And I know you're looking at the guidelines of the CDC, which, by the way, I support. I think you and the governor are going about this exactly the way you should be. With that being said, I have to ask you this question. Realistically speaking, what you just said about phase 3, we're not even in phase 1 yet. Can you give any sort of timetable or any idea where you could say to yourself, you know, maybe I could see the Strip opening up at this point? And I know the virus is going to dictate that. I know the CDC, you're talking to all the professionals, which, again, I 100% support. Can you give us any in-depth knowledge at all of where you can see this thing opening up again as far as the Strip goes?
No, and that would not be a responsible leader saying just that. So what I will tell you is I'm very excited about the governor's press conference today to start talking about moving forward to phase 1 because we've seen the numbers drop in hospitalizations because we are prepared in the event that we would need some. But I think that would be irresponsible of me as a leader. But I can tell you that conversations are being had with the LVCBA, with the Resort Association, with the health district, with the medical providers on what do we need to start preparing for. Because what I would tell you is it's a lot easier to shut things down. We all know that those of us that live here, when you open a brand new hotel, you start working weeks and months in advance to get things right. So the hotels are already doing that, and that's exactly the right thing they're supposed to be doing. Is what will the new adventure to Las Vegas mean for both the employees and for the employer as well as our tourists?
And I agree that the Strip at this point should be shut down because without the tourism demand, every single business would just be setting money on fire, in my opinion. But the local businesses across not just in Clark County, but across the state of Nevada, if you look at the entire caseload, it's less than 6,000. 1,180 of those are actually active cases. That's the lowest active case total of COVID-19 in the country by far. What about those other local businesses, those other local casinos, especially considering how important gaming is to the state income or to the tax revenue because we don't have a state income tax here or a food tax?
Well, those are very important, but again, you have to proceed with caution. We've already seen some other states having to pull back from phase 1. And I don't want to be in that position. What my reputation is I proceed slow, I'm methodical, and sitting on the House District brings a unique perspective, right? So I've been paying attention to this since January. So I think that we will get there. I think it's important that we open businesses as soon as we can, with public health as the number one priority on both sides, right? So some are nervous about going back, some are anxious to get back, and that creates a level of frustration. So phase 1 will be a huge tool for us to see where the data is. We have enhanced testing, so I'm looking forward to getting to phase 1.
Sure. Again, if you're just joining us, it's Marilyn Kirkpatrick, the Clark County Commissioner. One more question, then I want to get to some of these budget issues that you're facing and what you guys are dealing with. You know, I've talked a lot about some of these protests throughout the state and throughout the country. For example, what happened in Carson City, I think, was a travesty. I think it was disgusting. You know, when you have some of these protesters that are trying to storm into Governor Sisolak's actual home, some of them carrying guns. I mean, what do you make of some of these protests? Not just in this state, not just in Las Vegas, but throughout the country. What do you make of it?
Well, it's disappointing. It's not the Nevada that I know, and we've never done that. And so what I would say is I don't know how many of them are actually from Nevada or live in Nevada. So I wish that they could go back to their own states to start working on getting their states reopened. You know, we can't forget that all of the states around us Either they shut much earlier than we did. It's always been the conversation, at least on every plan that I looked at, that there was a minimum of 8 to 10 week shutdown. So I think it's disappointing because we're better than that in Nevada. And so for the Nevadans that are here, most that I've talked to are very reasonable. They're just looking for some guidance. So I'm not sure many of those people that were protesting actually live in our state.
Let me ask you one more question in regards to that, Commissioner. If you right now were talking to somebody going to one of these rallies, let's just say they do live in Las Vegas. They're wearing all their Trump gear. And I don't want to make this political, but let's just hypothetically speak, because let's be honest, most of these protesters are Trump supporters. What would you say to them, a Trump supporter going to one of these rallies saying we need to reopen tomorrow? What would be your message to them?
So my message would be that that's contrary to what President Trump has stated from day one. President Trump has said he'd like people to start opening around April 30th. We have followed his guidelines with the CDC since day one in our state, and that, we need to open as it's the public health is there. And so our state in particular worked to get all the testing in place. We did not wait for the federal government. And so knowing that all the states around us are in the same situation, we're working together to ensure that public health is number one.
Yeah, well, very well said. I completely agree. All right, let's talk about some of the budgetary issues that you're facing. I think on the record stating that, you got all these delivery services that are going up pretty high. They're skyrocketing. Meanwhile, revenues are plummeting. So you're facing a lot of challenging issues from a budgetary issue. Can you talk about the challenges that you're facing there financially and what you guys are trying to do as we speak to try to help people?
So what I would tell you is I caution folks on them insisting that we start making cuts because we've yet to see the social service impact today. And until we can bring back all of our employees, until we can get through phase one or get started in phase one, we really have yet to see. This is really the calm before the storm. So we know that unemployment is going to be well in the 20% aisle. We know that that's going to, more people are going to need rental assistance, more people are going to need food assistance, more of our vulnerable people are going to need extra things as well. So we today are looking, and, Nevada is a very lean state when it comes to government. I think we're like 48th on government as a whole. Because we've run very lean, because that is what people have expected of us for a very long time. Will we make some changes? Will we not do some of our park improvements or our maintenance to make some savings? Are we working to ensure that the CARES Act is being spent methodically for the long term?
Right.
Is there a benefit? So there's a lot of things that have to go into that, and it would be silly for us to do that overnight. We have amazing employees that have been on the front line that will continue to work with us as we get through this.
And Commissioner, I know you have an opportunity to constantly, you're in contact with the governor and many politicians in this state, but I have to ask you this. If you had an opportunity right now to speak to the President of the United States, what would be your number one priority? What would be the first thing you wanted to ask him and talk to him about?
Well, the first thing I'd want to talk to him about is the lost revenue component and understanding there's at least 7 states that work similar to Nevada where tourism, they rely on tourism dollars. And I would ask him to look at the public safety component of the lost revenue. An example is the Las Vegas Strip. So there's about 1,100 officers maybe that are funded based on revenue that comes from the Las Vegas Strip. So I don't want to have to go backwards with public safety because at some point I'm expected to provide a public safety component when tours start coming, but the revenue won't come at the same time. So I'd ask him to look at the lost revenue for states like mine. And public safety is a top priority. Police, fire, EMT services, for one, just to take that into consideration.
At this point, how much money do you think that Clark County and the Las Vegas Strip in particular, in Las Vegas, needs from the federal government to get back to, we'll say, 90% where you were before?
So we anticipate we have about a $361 million projected structural deficit, and that is because we rely on sales tax, room tax in our state. We anticipate about a $1.9 billion shortfall over the next 12 to 18 months on our projections. So that's a lot of revenue. Would I ask for all of it? Absolutely not. But do I think that there are some key areas within our community that we need to preserve? And that would be my ask.
Well, and I think that considering Donald Trump has property very well, basically on the Las Vegas Strip, he's close with Sheldon Adelson and Phil Ruff, and he has some close ties to Las Vegas that I think he would consider helping in that regard. That being said, Nevada, California, Colorado, Washington, Oregon just entered a Western States Pact. Do you see all those states coming together and asking for federal funding as a conglomerate, basically?
Well, I would hope that states across the nation come together to ask about that. But I know that counties really are working because so many people don't realize what counties do when it comes to social service, public safety, across the board, across the nation, the roadways that we have to provide for. Clark County is very unique because we provide both the county components that other states do as well as the municipality component. So I would hope the nation would come together to figure out how we can rebuild in a shorter time. The last recession took us 10 years across the country, and I'm not sure that we can wait 10 years to rebuild.
Sure. Commissioner, I appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners that maybe we haven't covered today, if anything at all, that you'd like to say?
No, first and foremost, I want to thank the residents of Nevada for being patient during these challenging times. And I want to also thank them for sticking with us, and we will get through this. We are very resilient, and I'm looking forward to getting started moving forward, and I ask that everybody work with us to make that happen in a safe and public health way.
Absolutely. Commissioner, I appreciate what you and your staff have done. I think you're doing a great job, and I also support the governor. I think you guys are really going about this the right way. I wish the entire country would follow your lead, quite frankly. But I thank you so much for coming on and taking the time, and love to have you on again down the road. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot, Commissioner.
That's Marilyn Kirkpatrick, the Clark County Commissioner. Unlike the mayor, she actually does oversee the Las Vegas Strip.
She does.
Certainly, I don't want to put her in a peculiar situation to attack the mayor, but I think you can tell by her answers she wasn't very happy with the way the mayor was answering some of these questions, and I think she's going about it the right way.
I thought it was very interesting that we have 1,100 police officers that are on the Las Vegas Strip at all times that are funded by sales tax from the Strip. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, well, it certainly isn't stopping the police officers and security on the Strip. I mean, I was taking a walk on the Strip the other day, and there were police officers everywhere.
And many aren't armed when things are. I mean, not armed, but aren't dressed. They don't look like police officers. They're not in the full uniform. When everything is rocking and rolling in Las Vegas, they're not really seen because they don't want to create that image of being kind of like an authoritarian, if you will.
Well, all I can tell you is this: I think the commissioner is going about this exactly the right way. She, just like everybody, I think, understands the financial burden and how difficult this has been on Las Vegas.
$1.9 billion is a real amount of money, Brian.
It is a real amount of money, but a real number is also over 70,000 deaths. She also understands that, and that is why she is listening to the CDC guidelines. And by the way, she's absolutely right. Many of this is through the Trump administration. The phases, when we should reopen, when we shouldn't reopen. Many of this is the guidelines through the Donald Trump administration. Donald Trump can say liberate Michigan and liberate any state he wants to, but the bottom line is his own administration's guidelines going by the CDC, taking it step by step. And the word we want to use here, or the word I used and the commissioner used, is being cautious. because what she doesn't want, what I don't want, and what I think most people don't want in this country is to open up too early for the wrong reasons and then have this pandemic come back stronger. And that is the worst thing that could possibly happen in this situation.
Well, you saw the recent study a couple days ago, right?
I'm sure she saw all the recent studies too.
The virus has mutated. It is now significantly more contagious than they initially thought, but it is not necessarily more deadly. So what that means is that it is going to spread, especially after what happened in New York, where, again, and we talked about this before, 1,300 people that are hospitalized. They did they traced where they were, and 66% of them were at home. They got the virus just sitting at home. So this thing is extremely contagious. It's most likely going to run its course no matter what we do as far as excessive mitigation. And right now, 34 million people in the United States don't have jobs.
Okay, well, your comment of it's most likely going to run its course,
yes.
quote, no matter what we do, to me, I couldn't disagree.
Okay, well, okay, short of us literally sitting at home.
Let me finish my statement.
And
you gotta let me finish. You gotta let me respond to you. No matter what we do, I completely disagree with that.
Within reason, no matter what we do within reason.
There has to be social distancing. Okay, it doesn't mean that we should have kept the strip open this whole time. It means that we have to be vigilant and we have to be careful. We have to listen to the social distancing guidelines. And I personally believe, and I think many in the medical field have been saying this, that if we haven't been practicing social distancing, if we let everything remain open, it is very plausible that we could have lost millions of lives.
Well, the strip comes and goes based on public perception. If the perception is that you can't be in a place with a group of more than 10 people, then it's not going to be busy. I mean, that's if airports are shut down internationally and nationally, it's not going to be busy. The strip cannot be opened unless the thought process is across not just the country but the world that it is okay and it is safe.
That's fine, but I don't agree.
And that has nothing to do with Clark County. There's nothing to do with local businesses or the Nevada economy itself.
That's fine, but I don't agree with let's just the disease, the coronavirus, it's going to run its course, so let's just go about our normal everyday lives. I'm sorry, I completely disagree with that.
Well, what I'm saying is basically the only way to stop this thing from spreading is by sitting in our homes all day long, having groceries sprayed down, having set up deliveries once or twice a week with groceries and supplies, and doing it that way, which is completely unreasonable and would never happen. So what I'm saying is no matter what we do, we're not going to stop the spread of this virus. It is going to spread, especially if it is mutated and become more contagious than it already was.
Okay. There's a reason why there's social distancing. There's a reason why there are guidelines put in place, and there's a reason why almost the entire country in the world is shut down. It is because there is a way to mitigate this, and there is a way to save lives, and that's exactly why we're in quarantine. That's exactly why we're doing a radio show out of a home, for that specific reason. We're not doing it for fun. We're doing it because we have to do it, because there are guidelines that are put in place, and the CDC and many other of the experts believe that it will save lives and it will help mitigate this virus. And I believe we need to continue to stay the course and listen to the experts and not open up everything just because somebody might think, well, the virus is going to run its course anyway, so let's just open everything up. I just disagree with that.
All right, so more news for 2020. A May snowstorm is headed for the Northeast U.S. A historic May snowstorm is heading for the Northeast U.S. and England. 75 million people are going to wake up with below freezing temperatures on this Saturday. It's going to be colder than it was on Christmas for 75 million people.
Good. That way more people will be forced to be in quarantine.
That is 2020 in a nutshell.
Well, good. Maybe that'll keep the idiot protesters home. That's actually a good thing. They won't be able to protest. They won't be able to go with their Trump flags and go out and protest.
In the Northeast, you're not going to have a lot of Trump flags, Brian.
Good. I hope they throw snowballs at each other.